Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of What's the Message? I am your host, Claudia Allen, and I am so excited to be back with my co-host, my commander-in-chief, the editor-in-chief, the lady that makes it all happen, Carmela Monk Crawford. We are so excited to be back with you. Like we always say, another week, another topic, another conversation. And this week is going to be an even better one because I am here with my friend for several years since I was actually in high school, a young tyke, Pastor Dr. Tricia Wynn Payne. Sorry, that's how you know I've known her for a while. And so I am excited to get into it. She launched her book on Tuesday, and she also serves as the cover story and cover image of our most recent print issue. And so I am excited to introduce you all to her. Pastor Tricia Wynn Payne is a sought after international Christian speaker and preacher who has enjoyed sharing life transforming messages of encouragement, empowerment, and hope for over 20 years. Inspired by suffering life threatening complications after undergoing a minor outpatient procedure, she now seeks to advance the restoration of individuals facing adversity in all phases of life. She transitioned from a 9-year career as a physical therapist to serve full-time in pastoral ministry because of her passion to inspire others with the life-empowering message of God's love. As a pastor, she has initiated innovative youth and young adult-focused ministries, developed community partnerships and outreach programs to assist underprivileged, at-risk, and refugee populations. While conducting young adult outreach in Chicago, Illinois, she met Kansas City, Missouri native Sean Payne, who would later become the love of her life and her husband. Together, they reside in Metro Detroit, Michigan, and she is currently serving as the senior pastor of the Conan Gardens SDA Church. As I said before, she is the recent author of The Fight for My Life, What I Discovered as I Triumphed Through Tragedy. This book declares that once the doctors reset her heart, Pastor Tricia Wynn Payne and her husband, Sean, had no idea their battle to save her life was only beginning. What was supposed to be a simple outpatient procedure created medical issues that snowballed out of control and placed Tricia in a series of complicated life or death situations. She went from independent, medication-free, and healthy to bedridden, heavily dosed by a variety of life-supporting medications with lines and tubes hanging from every direction. When she felt she was too weak to hold on, the presence of her husband, Sean, gave her the strength to fight for her life, her marriage, and the beautiful love that God had given her. In this page-turning book, Pastor Tricia summoned her spiritual connection and got closer to God as she triumphed through tragedy. In doing so, she discovered some invaluable lessons that gave her the will to survive, hoping that others will learn to lean on God even in their darkest hours. I have actually known Trish both as friend, as pastor, and as physical therapist. I actually had a major knee injury in both legs and could not walk for 3 weeks. And Trish literally was my physical therapist and literally got me back on my feet. And so it was actually during that time as well that she told me she felt that I was called to preach and teach the word. And I did not see any of that in my life. I was just wanting to play basketball. And so Trish saw something in me that I didn't even know was in there. And while I was, she was saying stuff to me while I was, unable to leave her presence. That's probably why she got to say what she got to say. I couldn't go nowhere. I was I was stuck. I was captive audience at that point. So, but yeah, she got me to preach kind of my first real sermon at Hyde Park, where she was kind of serving and wait. And it's been, from the ground running ever since. So it is truly a pleasure, an honor, a privilege to be able to welcome the one and only Pastor Dr. Because she does have a DPT, even though I did not read that in the bio. So
Pastor, that's okay.
Oh, it's a master's? Oh, well, listen, she's a physical therapist, Saints. She worked my life. All right. I'm so excited to welcome Pastor Tricia Wynn Payne. Trish, welcome. Carmela, take it away, friend.
Amen. Wow, we just got all kind of testimonies flying around in here. She inspiring you and us. We are inspired with this story with Message Magazine. I'm be honest, people don't know this, but God puts this thing together, and sometimes just as an editor, we pray and we ask God to help us, and I always pray for the readers that they will be blessed. And sometimes this is one of those times where there's a lot of things that came together that I just thought it was beautiful. This is our annual testimony issue, and we're talking about healing, and this coincides with your story. And I love the way you put this title together, Triumph After Tragedy, and how I learned. This is what I want to know. What did you learn coming out of this that you didn't know already?
You want me to answer that right now?
Yes.
I learned so many things. That's why people have to get the book. But I'll tell you what. No, but so the book is actually broken up into like two sections, if you will. The first part chronicles what happened, right? And then the second half continues to kind of elaborate on what happened, but shares the discoveries, right? The lessons or the truths that I learned going through it to enable me to say triumph through it. I believe that for me, God knew what I needed. Tragedy is never welcome, right? But what I learned going through it, I could say made it worth it, right? So for me, it made it worth it to a degree, right? So I feel like my healing has several layers, but really, I feel like I came out much better than when I went in.
Talk to us about what was this tragedy? What was it? What happened?
Well, Miss Carmela, in Ecclesiastes, the wisest man says, man, look, life and chance happens to all. Sometimes tragedy and all this stuff comes unawares and unexpected and just hits you. So I was just fine, right? I was going along just fine. 2016 was like a big year of blessing for me. I got commissioned, married, spoke for Pelk. Like it was a huge, and just a year later, almost a year to the date of speaking for Pelk, I was in the hospital undergoing some emergency surgery for something that was brewing inside of me that I didn't know. Right. So like I was in discomfort. I was having pain. I didn't know what was going on. They were looking around. I mean, I was passing out. And they were passing out at home, calling 911, getting rushed to the hospital for them to figure out what was going on. One visit to the ER, they're like, it's just ovarian torsion. You'll be better in a few days, within a week.
What did you call it?
Ovarian torsion was one thing they found, right?
Okay.
And so they said, you'll get better in a few weeks. It's fine. I said, okay, that's fine. But a few weeks came and went, and I wasn't better, right? I was going to meetings, traveling to meetings there. We probably saw each other a year in meetings, and people thought, well, she looks a little off. I was a lot off because I was in so much pain. And I didn't know what was going on, right? And so, I because I've been trained in the sciences, right? I believe in, following medical protocol. You do all the tests, and then you go from least invasive to more invasive in terms of trying to figure out what was going on, right? And so we did all the scans, all the tests, couldn't figure out why I was still in so much pain. And so finally, knowing that like pain is a real big indicator that something is wrong.
Yeah.
Preach that, Claudia. It's pain is an indicator that something is wrong, whether it's physical or emotional, right? If you're hurting, there's something that needs to be addressed. And that's something I learned in school. That's like, pain is a warning. It's your body's signal to tell you something is wrong. Pain should not be ignored. It's like, it's your own internal warning. Bing, bing, bing. And I don't know if it's just in the Black community, but you got pain in your stomach. I don't know if it's just West Indian or it's like, it's gas. Drink some tea or do something else. maybe we underestimate our own pain. We try to find some bush, some remedy, some natural thing to try to take care of that pain. We'll get like some rub and you'll rub it away. It's like, it's not going away. Then you go to the doctor and you don't believe what they're telling you, but I learned that, pain is an indicator. So look, I want this resolved, right? It's abdominal pain. It's not going away. It's getting worse with activity. This is crazy, right? And so I agreed. I said, hey man, look, it's fine. Right. Let's see what's going on. And so I'll leave you there. And so you have to read the book to find out what happened.
Oh, come on. Really?
Carmela, don't be so disappointed. Well,
because first of all, I don't even know. I don't even know what torsion is.
Oh,
is that what it was?
So, and the funny thing is,
Claudia, did you know? You're laughing. Did you know what that was?
No, but
right.
I mean...
So anyway, so they go in to take a look to see, what's going on. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when everything changed for me. So, everything went wrong, and we didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
I went home and I was in worse pain, man. I was in worse pain. And so ended up going back to the hospital. And then that's where the book kind of picks up and just kind of dives into everything that happened.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how critical my situation was, right? And I'll tell you, so to put your mind at ease, it wasn't even related to ovarian torsion. So ovarian torsion happens, as they describe it, like sometimes in women, you can get a cyst on your ovary, right? And sometimes they get so big and then the ovary can the ovary itself can twist.
Okay, yeah.
Right. And so then that can cause a lot of pain, and often it can self-correct. But if it doesn't, then you may have other problems, right? So, so anyway, I didn't realize how serious my situation is. And like I said, I think, underestimating for me. I was like, it's no need to fuss. But when I started passing out at home and in so much pain, and the pain was getting worse and worse and worse, I was so grateful. A friend came by to check on me, and, thank God for good friends.
Yeah.
Came by to check on me, and she started telling me a story about what happened to her dad. And this is the power of telling your story. I know you like that, Carmela. You like that, right? The power of telling your story. She told a story of what happened to her dad, where a simple thing had gone unaddressed and he died, right?
Okay.
And so she suggested, why don't you go to the ER? So Sean quick packed us up and we all went. Thank God for that story.
Wow.
And had it not been, I think, for her prompting, just her sharing the story, I would have stayed at home, underestimated my pain, and died at home.
Wow.
And so I don't know. I guess maybe somebody out there, you don't have to be like, thinking every little thing is a big thing, but I think there are people out there who ignore what's happening inside our body, right? We don't pay attention, and we don't get our physicals. We don't get our checkup. Or we don't advocate for ourselves when our symptoms are not resolved. You don't keep pushing. And unfortunately, we lose life. One of the things that comes up in the book, Carmela, is for Black people, when we go to the hospital, studies show that our pain is underestimated. Our pain, how can I say this? Studies show that we don't get the same attentive care as other people who are not Black. And so in the book, I tell, like, when we go back to the ER and I'm there, I'm very mindful of this, right? Because of studies and everything else. And I'm looking at this ER doctor right now, and I know something is wrong. I'm finally there. I'm like, something is wrong. I'm not imagining how wrong, right? Yeah. But something is wrong. And the least they could do is just observe me for a couple of days, right? And so the ER doctor's looking like he's doubting
Yeah.
my experience right now. He's doubting and he's standing at the computer, but I have the sense that God is going to take full control. So the ER doc asked 2 questions. My husband, Sean, was there, and my friend, Anna, was there, and he asked them 2 questions, 1 question for both of them. What do you do? What do you do for a living? My friend, Anna, is an attorney. She said, I'm an attorney. And Sean said, I work with medical software. After that answer, the doctor said, we'll admit her for observation.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I'm like, well, thank you, Lord. I needed a move of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so thank God I was admitted for observation, because where the book begins, it starts with this crazy scene where I'm lying on the hospital bed and the room is filled with, it's like my personal ground zero. Everybody's rushing in the room. The nurses, the doctors, the specialists, and they look like they're in a hurry, and it look like something is wrong.
Okay.
Carmela and Claudia, it looks like something is really wrong. And I'm lying there like this. I'm at this point in a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort. Everything looks like and I'm looking around thinking, is this for real right now? I'm having memories, Claudia, of being a PT in the hospital. I worked in different settings, ER, ICU, acute care. And I know that when this happens, somebody's coding or is going to code. Somebody is coding. This is a code, right?
Yeah.
Something is going on. This is a code. And I'm thinking, me?
Wow.
Then the doctor tells Sean that it's his job to keep me here. That is in life, living, keep me here. He tells
Sean's job.
Tell Sean, because they're about to do an urgent emergency procedure to reset my heart.
My Lord.
And it's in that, all of what transpired, that they finally discovered what was going on. And in the whole experience, I came so close to, I didn't realize, because, how close I came to death a couple of times. The surgeon said everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And in my case, the funny thing is I knew something was coming. You get the sense, you pray, you spend time with God, and there are times where God will reveal, right? Sometimes he'll impress you, pray for so-and-so, right? He'll say, you'll be impressed. I think I need to go visit so-and-so, or, but this time the Lord's like, look, you need to pray for yourself, because something is coming. And so I start praying this is months before I start praying for myself. Because, as a pastor, I'm praying for my ministry and everything else. And I don't know if somehow in all that I lose sight of myself, right? And so I learned a lot of lessons through it all. One of them is to remember what God has done in the past. I think when we're in the midst of our sudden unexpected storm, if you will, like when we're in the midst of our tragedy or the thing that happens, whether it's a loss or like something that happened in our family or to ourselves, when something bad happens, even what we're dealing with right now, in this country, whether it's COVID, whether it's a racial tension, when stuff happens, right, that is disagreeable to us or very upsetting, or our personal life storm, there is a great temptation to allow the sadness of it, the distress of it, to cloud, and that be everything, that be all we see. That's the only thing we see, to the point that we forget what God has accomplished and done in the past. And so that thing has the weight and the possibility to depress us and to distort even the way we see God.
Yeah.
Right. And so one of the big lessons I learned is to remember what God has accomplished and done in the past. So I had a lot of time on that hospital bed and recovering at home, right? A lot of time to remember what God has done.
What he has done in the past.
Yeah.
Glory.
Yeah. And one of the things I think I had taken for granted for me was I have a scar. I have a scar I grew up with a scar. It starts right here, right under my breastbone, and it goes all the way down. And I remember as a kid, I would look in the mirror and say, Mom and Dad, what is this? You know what? They would tell me the story of what happened. Listen, I'm telling you, there is power in sharing your story and talking, right? But thank God for parents who tell the story, right? So they told me what happened. You know, when I was 6 months old, they didn't know what was wrong. I couldn't keep food down. I was so sick. Took me to all these different specialists. They ended up doing exploratory surgery, and only by the grace of God, I'm here. That's the abbreviated version, right? So I have this long scar, and I think as a kid, I looked at it. I was like, wow. And they would tell me, "You're a miracle. Yeah, you're a miracle." And that scar was evidence that, hey, I'm only here because God saved my life. And also thank God for that scar, because, you know, Black parents, maybe now they change, but Black parents, when it comes to discipline, you know what I'm saying? It's more than a timeout and a word and a scolding word, right? Yeah. So that scar saved my life. I'm so grateful. They were afraid. They're like, oh, she's got a scar. She's sick. It's okay. You know, so thank you, Jesus.
Don't spank the baby.
We can't beat the sick baby. Don't beat the sick baby.
So anyway, so I had the scar, and I think I had taken for granted, like as I grew up with it, it was just the reason I couldn't wear a bikini. You know what I'm saying? You know, when you're a teenager, you all trying to be all cute, you know? Yeah. But I want to wear it, cover your body up. I was like, but they didn't have to tell me that because I didn't want anybody to see it. Right? And I think it becomes so much a part of me that I forgot the story.
You forgot. Yeah.
Of course, even though it's there in front of me every day, I forgot the story. You know, Jesus, a God, as he was leading the children of Israel, he would tell them over and over, even in the Psalms, rehearse the story, tell them the story over and over. How God, even in the 10 Commandments, it starts with the story.
That's true.
Wow. You know what I'm saying?
True.
He tells them, don't forget.
That's right.
God, the Psalms are filled with the story, right?
That's right.
There's a reason you can't forget what God has done. It's not a sermon, right? So anyway, so I'm lying on the bed, and I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. I forgot about that scar. In my drugged up state, a little memory came back. God saved my life before. I was 6 months as a baby. I couldn't remember. It had been my parents' story. It was never mine. But it is my story.
Shanana. Yes.
But it is my story. It's my story. But I never embraced it as my story.
Right.
Wow.
So if I didn't embrace it as my story, I didn't get the benefit to even understand what God was trying to tell me in that story. You understand what I'm saying?
I get you.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wait a minute, what happened before? And part of my scarring and my new incision is over and alongside that old incision.
Mercy.
Old scar. It's like God's
one
like,
miracle,
better.
2 miracles.
Better remember. And so I remember it was a miracle. It was a miracle. Can you imagine? My Black immigrants from Jamaica to Canada in the 60s and 70s, right? They're there taking their little 6-month-old. They got 3 other kids, taking their 6-month-old baby all around the city trying to find a specialist. And then as a young adult parents having to take the pen and sign when the doctor tells you it's a 50-50 chance. Right? Mom tells me she prayed. Dad said he couldn't do it. He's like, I gotta do this. My mom took the pen and she prayed. And it was by the grace of God that I lived, right? And so I said, well, remembering what God did before, I said, well, God, if you did it before, you can do it again. And that helped my faith. Now, each of the things that I learned, all the discovery, they kept on building and encouraging my faith, because as I was going through the whole experience and the recovery of it, it was tough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? when the assistance of one lesson ran its course, God would reveal another one so I wouldn't lose faith, but it was all building. But to remember what God did before helped me. Not only as I looked at my own body, but then I remembered scripture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why did the Lord tell them to always remember? There's a reason. And so it bolstered my faith.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed faith to be able to get through what I was going through.
Wow.
That's so good. I mean, like, so many questions have come to my mind. One that I kind of want to ask is, I appreciate that you said it was difficult, and that it did strengthen your faith. I feel like that kind of compounded, let's call it suffering or compounded tragedy on one life, another individual might take that and say, man, God is against me. I'm not going to turn to God and remember maybe how he got me out of the last tragedy or how he got me out of the last moment of suffering. I'm going to see this as, this is an attack and he doesn't really love me. And how do you how did you reconcile that? Man, I'm not going to give up on God, or I'm not going to lose a particular image of God from this, based on having this full life of, really a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Well, that's real. And I do answer that question in the book. However, I will tell you, I'm serious. I am so serious. Right.
Yeah.
And so, as a person of faith, okay, so I felt like giving up, right? So let me just be real, right? There was a time I felt like giving up. I was done. I felt what was happening to me was absolutely cruel. I knew something was coming, right? I could never have imagined it would have been so bad. I'm lying in the hospital bed. I got lines, it says lines and tubes everywhere. Really, I got this PICC line, trilumen PICC line. I've got all the IVs and everything. I can't eat, a feeding tube, catheter bag, like all kind of horrible things like that. I don't think a young person should have to deal with, man. Just recently married, and I'm thinking, really though,
the man just got on board. Now we're dealing with this.
Yeah.
So I was just like, so there was a time where I was feeling like, you know what, Lord, this just might be it. A year or so before, I had lost, it was a community loss. The choir director of the choir I grew up in, Expression of Praise, had passed away, and he was young, right? Young man. And that whole death riveted us. And now this is happening to me and other people in my choir. I grew up with different people around. They were going through stuff, right? And I thought, oh, maybe it's my turn.
Wow.
I said, this could be it. And then I started to think about it. I said, well, Lord, I preached this gospel for over 20 years. I gave you everything. I left my home country. I left my parents, my siblings, my nieces and nephews. Everybody is there. I left my profession. I grew up and I was indoctrinated. You better get a trade or a profession. Thank God for a strong father. You know what I'm saying? Put it in me. Get your education. I worked hard. Claudia, I worked hard. Got in that PT program, graduated probably near the top of my class. Did great. I worked hard. You know what I'm saying? And I gave that, I surrendered that to pursue a full-time pastoral ministry, right? I'm like, God, what else could I give? What else could I give? I'm done, right?
Mercy.
And I felt like, and I know it's me and my humanness. I was like, I gave everything, I fought a good fight. I finished my course. There's laid up for me a crown, and I'm like, God, please, I just want my soul to be right with you. And that's it.
Wow. You made a choice.
I thought it was it. Right. So I thought, maybe this is it. I survived from an infant, right? Maybe this is my expiration date. And And then I looked up, lying on the hospital bed. I looked up and I saw Sean standing over me.
Mercy.
And I realized, I was like, God, I have not experienced, I want to live. There is yet more life to live. I haven't been married 2 years, God. I've been doing this single thing for quite some time, you know. I want this. I want to experience life with my husband, this man that you gave me, you know. I saw his face, and I said, God, it's not just, I want to live. I want to live. And so instead of giving up and letting go, because behind the scenes, I didn't realize that the chaplain was having conversation with Sean about putting my house in order, start making end of life arrangements. He didn't tell me that. I just found that out the other day. Wow. And so I said, God, I want to live. That was a turning point. That was one of the turning points.
Yeah. You know what I find what you're saying really strikes home for me, because and especially we're right now in this pandemic, and there's so many people who've gone through loss. So many people are having to have that end of life determined. We have to think about putting ourselves in order. Even we who have not contracted the virus, this is about this discussion close to home, because it could be any one of us at any point. Now, for me, when you talk about faith and having faith, I remember once I preached a sermon called Get Out of Faith Free, which probably, that's my dark dealing with the idea of having to find that faith in a deep place when you feel like you've been burned before on the faith thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's like, it's not just, I've given everything, but I prayed last time, or I prayed for this situation or that situation. It didn't work out the way I wanted it to. What am I supposed to do with faith right now? And so I guess I'm asking you that because in that moment, you're like, I've invested a lot in this, Lord. So what is he saying to you?
That's a good question. I have come to learn to trust God's best for my life. To trust God's best will for my life. I have come to learn that sometimes what I want and what I think is best for me at the moment, in the big scheme of things, the big scope that I can't see, that aerial view, you ever go on one of those apps where you could see the whole city, or you can see the whole continents, I don't have that view, but God does. Not only does he have that view geographically, but he has that in time.
Mercy.
He has that view in time.
Wow.
And what I see now as what is good and what is best and what would be great for me, because otherwise I just would be uncomfortable or heartbroken, right? I have learned to trust that if I ask God in full faith, right? I talk about faith also in full faith and what that means for me and what I learned that to mean also for me. If I talk to God in full faith and he chooses to do something else, then I have learned to accept that.
Mm-hmm.
because in the big scope of things, he somehow sees that it's going to be for my good. So hence the title, Triumph Through, the subtitle, right? What I discovered as I triumph through tragedy. Triumph through is not only to give the idea of, hey, I've overcome and I've conquered, right? Okay, I was near death. Now I'm alive. Oh, you've triumphed. You know, you were sick and now you're healed. Oh, I've triumphed. But triumph through means that as I am winning, going through this adversity, I am winning, I am triumphing, I am overcoming, going through the fire, because somehow and in some way, this adversity, this fire, this discomfort is making me triumph. It's making me better as I stay with Jesus in his hands. I have come to understand that the furnace of affliction, if you will, that the trials that God allows to come our way, it's not to destroy us, but it's to build us in God. You know, when we're in faith, right? You know, 1 Corinthians 10:13 says there is no temptation, that same word for trial though. There's no temptation, no trial that has come to you, right? That is not common to man. In other words, I ain't the only one going through, right? I'm not the only one. That is not common to man. But with that, God not only gives me strength, but he makes a way of escape. And then I jump over to James, right? James chapter 1, and the first couple of verses there lets me know that there is purpose for my pain. Oh my gosh, I'm not preaching, but these are some of the things I learned.
I mean, you can preach it how you feel it on here. If you know.
My goodness, but there is purpose for it. God is working out something greater in me. So some of the things that we have been going through, right? We have been facing and experiencing, some of those of you watching are going through, right? It's awful. Absolutely awful. I've come to learn that as I continue to trust in God, God will take that awful and give it a new purpose. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that God would not only have spared my life, extended it, impressed me to write about it. And then I wake up yesterday morning to these bings and emails saying that this testimony has been a #1 release, #1 bestseller on Kindle in like 5 categories. Who would have thought that?
Glory.
Who would have known that? But God, that God could take what happened and use it for some good. But who knows that? Who could ever see that but God? But so I challenge all of us that in our discomfort to hold on, to remember what God has done, remember what he has said, another thing. Hold him to it. Because I believe that he can bring out something better. And so we're Christians, right? And so we believe Jesus is coming again. We're not just, we're Seventh-day Adventist Christians on top of that, right? So we have a hope that burns within our heart, right? Hope in the coming of the Lord, right? Right? There's a song, right? We believe that the time is near when the nations far and near will awaken, shout and sing, hallelujah. Christ is King. Jesus is coming back, right? And he's coming back to take us, those of us whose characters are ready for heaven. And how some of us need some trial to get that character right.
Mercy.
That's hard.
We don't like that part.
I don't.
That's real.
The trial reveals, it's a revealer. And so as we're going through, and sometimes we might feel discouraged and giving up, that's a revealer. It shows that our faith is it needs help. Some of us are going through, we're like, God, you don't really care about me. Blah, blah. It's a revealer that we don't have a proper understanding of God. And so it's a challenge, isn't it then? And so we got to hold on to that, you know, as we look at the word and we understand how things are going to roll out, the closer Jesus gets, it's going to get tough, right?
For sure.
So
what do you say to people who have gone through that? I mean, I don't want to put this person out there, but you know, I've got people that I know in my circles that they're ready to walk away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that makes me sad. But there's not much that you can say when people have gone through so much pain that they, in human strength, yeah, you can see how you want to give up and walk away. You feel like your prayers just bounce down from the ceiling, or you feel like, God is punishing you. And we don't know all of that. We don't know what, just like you say, we don't have the aerial view. But as a fellow person on the ground, talking to someone who feels like, I'm tapping out, is there anything that you can say?
The only thing that I could say is share your story.
Well, there's that.
Share your story, though. Sometimes there's nothing you can say, you want to change it for them. And we've got to trust God's love for them so much that on their journey of, even if they've chosen to walk away, that somehow he's able to meet them on that road. But all you can say is tell you what happened to you.
That's so good. With that in mind, I appreciate you saying that, you felt like God called you to turn this into a book. What was that process like for you? The actual writing process?
It was, okay. So there was a journaling as I was going through stuff. Right. But then when I got the final nudge, okay, put it all together and write, it was a very disciplined process. So I was very determined that this was going to be my personal time. Right. And so I'd get up early in the morning, before, work phone calls and all that would go up, and I get up early and I scheduled it, I put it in my calendar. In fact, it still pings me to tell me it's time to get up and write. Right. And I'd get up early in the morning and I would designate 3 to 4 hours every morning for writing for a committed 3 to 4 months. And I'd go into my quiet place. Sean had this little closet for me. He made up, it was like my little prayer room,
That's
awesome. Your war room.
It is my war room. Sean decided he did such a good job with it. And so my little war room, and I'd go in there and war, right?
Mercy.
I'd go in there and war. And so it was just a designated set of time every morning for several months. I thought about, part of the process was like, identifying what parts of the story are going to be told. Identifying that. How is it going to start? How is it going to end? Okay, what are the points in between? All right. All right, move on. Okay, get those different segments or movements. How are they going to start? How's it going to get those points in between? How am I going to transition? And then once I had like a rough outline, I'd be like, okay, let's try to fill it in. Let's try to fill it in. And so that's kind of how it was for me.
Did you ever, it seems to me, you revisiting some of these things, I'm curious about your emotional interaction with the copy. It seems to me, revisiting some of these things, you could be writing and then all of a sudden be like, I need to take a cry break. I don't know.
Okay, very good. You want me to be real honest?
Yeah.
I did. I think for me, reliving it, I got depressed.
Really?
I did. It was like being right back there. And I relived some of the emotions that I felt. And I remember calling, I had a writing coach, someone to kind of coach me along. I called my writing coach. Sorry, I'm not going to be able to meet this deadline. I can't do it. She just stopped, take a break for a week, just stop. I just couldn't. I just couldn't. I just stopped. And I stopped and I was so sad. Other things were going on at the time because life was still happening.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, life still goes.
I'm still pastoring a church. Stuff's still going on. Right. And so I was like, it's just much. And then God reminded me, Tricia, you're not there anymore. You're writing from this place.
Yeah.
And so I had to change my perspective and write it from a point of I'm healed. I'm looking back. That was hard, but yeah.
You know what's
Really
beautiful
hard.
about this story? Your story is one of several in this current issue of Message Magazine about healing. Once again, God took the stories. Reginald Alexander, if people don't know who he is, look him up, find out, talk about, find about his journey through cardiac sarcoidosis and how he is waiting for our heart for months. I was talking on the phone to this man, this author of this story, how he wanted to be home by Christmas. But when it got down close to it and we were praying, I was like, God, come on, please, so praying and pleading. But then there's one woman whose story is in the magazine. It's a short story. And from start to finish, she talks about how she went to the hospital and they gave up. They were done with her. She was in line on a gurney, on a stretcher, white sheet over her face on the way to the morgue when the sister from the church came from church and said, "Where is she?" And she went over there and she felt her arm. She's like, "She's got a pulse."
Jesus.
She's got a pulse, okay? This is not over yet. So it's like, this story didn't have to be pretty. This doesn't have to be crafted in a certain way. It's just an acknowledgement of what God has done. One thing about this, and I kind of laugh about this, but I remember the comedian Sinbad. You ever watch Sinbad or listen to Sinbad? Sinbad talks about this, talks about him as a young person doing all kind of crazy stuff that we all did when we were young, jumping off of stuff, running across the train tracks, doing all this. He said he would come home at night, close that door, be like, I'm alive, And that's what I saw in your face when you started telling this story. Is like, never mind the fact of everything that I went through. The story was the near miss, even before the hospital happened. It was the fact that was the jeopardy before the story even happened. And it's making sense. I just said, I was looking at your face because you were like, and we're not even talking about all the tubes and wires and the code. We're just talking about that moment in time when it could have been death or life. And so anyway, I'm just saying the power of a testimony, you can't do anything with that.
No, that's so good. And I think the thing that's coming to my mind with, Pastor Payne's story, as well as the stories you just shared, Carmela, is there does seem to be this thread of Black women needing to advocate for their health. There's a Black woman laying on a gurney, still alive, with a sheet covering her face.
Okay.
And somebody had to come in and say, this woman has a pulse.
Mm-hmm.
Trish has pain in her body that she is having to make these doctors believe in. And it takes having her friend and her husband present to get them to care. Like that one that is extremely problematic. But I think that it speaks to, I think on a practical side, if you are a patient, if you are someone watching this, if you are a Black woman and you ever find yourself sick or in pain or needing to go to the hospital for any reason, it behooves you to bring somebody with you. Even if you are not married, you need to make a phone call to somebody. Do not go in there by yourself because they will let you sit. And they will not necessarily meet the needs or trust in what you are trying to articulate to them about what your body needs. And that is so unfortunate. And we most certainly need to address the racism that is within the healthcare system. But when you are in pain, that's not the time for you to be dismantling racism. That's the time for you to have a couple people on your side that are going to advocate you getting some care. I just really want to drive that home. Now, Trish, we are in the final moments here, friend. And so I would like you to do two things. One, I would like you to share in 60 seconds or less. What is the hope in your headline? Because this is your story. This is your testimony. This is your experience. What's the hope in your headline? And then after that, I'd love for you to share with people how they can get the book, The Fight for My Life, how they can follow you. And if you have any other, means and modes that they need to be aware of.
Thanks, Claudia. And thank you, Carmela. The hope in my headline is that we can actually triumph through our tragedies.
Yeah.
We can. We can triumph through. Just because adversity comes, it doesn't mean it has to beat us. And if we hold on long enough, and when we're in the midst of it, it doesn't seem to make any sense. But hold on long enough and hold on to your faith in Christ. Hold him to his word, and you will triumph. Okay. So that's the hope in my headline. You can follow me multiple ways. You can follow me on Instagram, Tricia Wynn Payne. You can follow me on Facebook, like my page, Tricia Wynn Payne, and make it really easy. You can go to my website, triciawynnpayne.com. I'm there. You can pick up a copy of my book in several different ways. If you do it through triciawynnpayne.com, you'll get a wristband and you'll be scheduled for a 1-hour free conference. If you can get the book on other means, the ebook and the paperback is available on multiple platforms, all major platforms, Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, all the major platforms. And if it's not on iBook yet, it will be. But it's there. And thank you so much just for the love, and Message Magazine. Thank you for transforming and just being the premier, the historic, longstanding first a Black magazine in America, Christian magazine. Thank you so much. And thank you all so much for the love.
Absolutely. Listen, as you guys know, here at Message Magazine, we try to make sure that you are always aware of some of the most amazing, powerful stories. And as Carmela mentioned, there are even more amazing testimonies of healing available in our most recent print issue that literally has the cover of Pastor Payne on the front of it. And I had to let her know. I was like, Trish, you went and got this Michelle Obama type headshot. I see you out there, sis. So make sure that you go to our website at www.messagemagazine.com. You can get your copy of the latest issue of the magazine. You can hear and read in greater detail some of Trish Payne's story. But then you can also hear in greater detail about the gentleman and the woman that Carmela let us know about today. Please remember, this is a podcast that is hosted and sponsored by Message Magazine. And so we cannot do the work of storytelling, of resourcing, equipping, and continuing to just bring the spiritual and social needs of Black people to you without your partnership. So make sure that you partner with us at Message. Go to our website. You can get your copy of the bi-monthly issue, as well as subscribe to our weekly newsletter right there on our website. But you also want to make sure you are following us all over social media. We are on Instagram. We are on Twitter. We are on Facebook. We are on YouTube. So if you happen to not have a Facebook page, if you have a family member that doesn't have a Facebook page and they can't watch the podcast right here with us live, we always put the playback on our YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Message1898. As I always say every single week, it is always a pleasure. And I pray that you join us next week, same time, same place, just a different topic. We pray that you are blessed. Thank you. Bye.
Claudia, I think the one other thing that we have to remember,
our behavior is definitely influenced or impacted by
Claudia, I think the one other thing that we have to remember
we're just
is
excited that
we
with
have
the
plenty of
powers
people
of Zoom and the
that
like
want to be
Claudia,
I think
the eating of certain animals
is that we have plenty of people that want to be ministers. Claudia,
right?
I think one other
So
thing that
many
we have to
churches are
remember is
80%
that we have plenty
of
of
the
people
affiliates, ABC
that
affiliates here in the
want to be
United States.
ministers.
Not
Claudia,
telling the
I think
truth and
one
going
other thing
back
that
to
we have
let's
to
just
remember
dip.
some of
is
the
that
issues.
we have
And
plenty of
so
people
we live our lives
that
working.
want to
If
be
you think about
Brother from another
Claudia,
mother,
I think the
the
one other thing that we have
pastor,
to remember
Richard,
is
and
that
I'm
we
telling
have
you,
plenty of
you know,
people
we handle
that
the heavy
want to be
stuff. We
ministry
do
partners
the
with
heavy
Pastor
stuff.